kind of wanted to work in an industry that allowed me to explore kind of my creative side and also the more kind of logical, practical side of things, which kind of led me into architecture. And then once I'd finished my undergrad, architecture education is kind of quite often rotated around a single building within a kind of very close environment and not the wider city or country and policy that impacts that. So I then kind of moved into architecture with urban planning so that I could combine those things and start looking at more, like community networks and infrastructure and things like public transport and accessibility that are kind of more a city scale rather than one individual building. So that is kind of what led me into that area. And when I started looking at that for my master's, then it kind of just grew from there and evolved a little bit into more urbanism rather than just architecture or urban planning. And then in terms of the sector, I think I like the construction sector, the real estate sector, because it's quite hands-on and allows you to look at things. It intersects with a lot of other different topics like communities and the public sector and municipalities. So that was probably kind of my main reason for joining the sector. For me, one of the kind of key things would be recognition of gender within local development plans and policy across the UK and obviously wider, but I think in the UK it's a particular issue. I know that none of the local development plans in Scotland include gender equality at all within their policy or proposals, and it's kind of a key thing in achieving sustainability is making sure that everything is also equal and inclusive, and design and spatial equity is kind of a key component of that. So that would be kind of the main thing that I would hope would be reformed within planning in the UK. Generally, I take quite a lot of inspiration from feminist theorists more than particular architects. I know that when I kind of started my career, there were specific architects that I really loved or idolized their work a little bit. But I think now I take quite a lot of inspiration from theory and figuring out how that can then be reflected within design. And then also obviously collectives like Matrix and Part W that are doing quite a lot of work in this area and making sure that the kind of femme experience is heard within architecture and urban planning. So I suppose they probably inspire the kind of drive to keep going with her collective and the research that I'm doing. It was set up in 2021 by myself and a kind of colleague, Amelia, to facilitate our research into kind of feminist theory, gender mainstreaming across Europe and in the UK, and allow us to work together on certain projects. So at the moment we're developing workshop structures that can be brought within organisations, municipalities, academic institutions, and also kind of on a more individual level or individual project level, that allow you to critically analyse public space and understand who is and isn't using space and why, as a way of kind of as a stepping stone into making sure that spaces are more equal or understanding what is making spaces feel unsafe to certain people. So that's the kind of primary project at the moment, and the aim of it was just a method of doing those things and allowing us to kind of explore the ideas that we wanted to out with the practice that we work for. Feminist urbanism is kind of the translation of feminist ideals, whether that's kind of networking, gender equality in practice, through to spatial design and policy. And it's kind of making sure that spaces are and feel equal, that women have equal opportunities, both within the workplace, but also within public space and within the home. It kind of just sits as an umbrella for all of those different explorations. For me, one of the things that's been quite influential on my career probably is like almost picking a cause, like thinking about something that you're passionate about kind of socially or in terms of space, and thinking about that kind of quite critically and understanding how that can then impact your career. So I'm very passionate about women's safety within public space, and that then kind of leads into community infrastructure and a lot of the kind of feminist urbanism theories and ethos. And then that kind of has then led into my further career. So I think, thinking about what you really care about within the sector, but also out with the sector, and kind of connecting those dots can really be beneficial in making sure that you're doing something that you care about, and can kind of help you like narrow down what specific job titles you're wanting to do, if it's architecture or urbanism or real estate or whatever. I think like leading on from kind of connecting the dots and deciding what you care about, I think that has then influenced how I network, and kind of the networks that I looked at when I first graduated or kind of in the lead up to graduation was who's currently working within the area that I'm interested in, what networks are they part of, who are they engaging with, what are they doing on LinkedIn, and what are they tweeting about, and all that kind of stuff. And then kind of taking all that information and starting to engage with it myself. And that kind of led me on to networks like the Academy of Urbanism, who I've worked with quite a lot on their kind of lectures and events on gender equality. So kind of immersing yourself in networks that I think are following similar lines to you and kind of, would help you engage with other people that are working in a similar area. That's also kind of how I met Amelia, who does her collective with me. So I think that was kind of quite beneficial. And organizations like Urbanistas that you were interviewing previously are quite a good example, as well as Part W and Women in Planning and all those kind of things. And then in terms of public speaking, I don't really know. I think if you are passionate about something and you have done your research, then it kind of comes a little bit more naturally. I could talk about gender in public space for hours if I was given the opportunity. So I think that kind of helps a little bit and is quite a good talking point if you are then willing to kind of just put yourself out there as someone that works within that area and is researching in that area. Because fortunately, there hasn't been a lot of work, or unfortunately, there hasn't been a lot of work done in gender equality already within architecture. So it is something that people are interested in hearing about, which helps. It's kind of just, you have to be a little bit of an extrovert and just put yourself out there and talk about what you're passionate about, or and that can also be kind of social issues as well, or political issues. I think it's important to talk about those things. It's something that people are always willing to talk about anyway.